Chapter 18. Minli followed the boy through the maze of streets and alleyways for what seemed like a long time. If it wasn't for the big buffalo that was always in view, Minli would have easily lost him many times. "Not too far now," the boy said to her. Minli realized that the boy lived very far from the inner city. The road was no longer stone, but dirt. Even from a distance, she could see that the outer city wall was cracked and broken. "I live over here," the boy said, pointing. And Minli looked down a muddy path that led to a shabby, rickety hut that looked as if the first strong wind would blow it away. The boy brought the buffalo right into the hut, and Minli went in after. She looked around the small, meager home. The only furnishings Minli could see were 2 wooden crates and a rough stool. On one side of the hut, a crude metal gate stood in the fireplace, with a well-worn pot on it. The other half of the hut was divided into 2 piles of dry grass. Minli watched as the buffalo went directly to one pile and lay down. The boy gave it an affectionate slap on the side and dragged the rough wooden stool across the floor to her. "Here, have a seat," he said, as he sprawled onto the other pile of grass. "And tell me why you want to go to the palace so much." "It's not the palace," Minli said as she sat on the stool. "I want to see the king." And she told the buffalo boy the whole story. She saw his face wrinkle with disbelief when she talked about the fish, and he shook his head when she told about the dragon, but he didn't interrupt once. "I don't know how you are going to see the king," the boy told her when she finished. "Even if you do see him, I doubt you'll be able to ask for a borrowed line, especially when you don't even know what it is." "But I have to," Minli said. "There must be a way." "Well, I always think better after I've eaten," the boy said, and he stood up and opened one of the crates. "Let's have dinner." While he fried the plain bamboo shoots in the pot over the fireplace, Minli looked around the bare room. "Do you live by yourself?" she asked. "Uh-huh," the boy nodded. "My parents died 4 years ago. Ever since then, it's been me and the buffalo." He spoke almost carelessly, without anger or self-pity. Suddenly, Minli thought about her own home, the wood floor always swept by Ma, the extra blanket Ba put over her when the wind blew cold, and she felt a strange tightness in her throat. The boy finished cooking and pushed the cooked bamboo, like thinly sliced pieces of yellow wood, onto a plate. He only had 1 plate, so he set it on the stool next to the 3 peaches Minli had left, and both sat cross-legged on the ground. She took out her chopsticks, he only had 1 pair of those as well, and each picked and ate with the stool as a table and the single plate between them. "You don't have any aunts or uncles?" Minli asked. "Other family or friends?" "Well," the boy said, tossing a peach to the buffalo, and then hesitated. "I do have 1 friend," and Minli was surprised to see his face change unexpectedly. The sharpness of his expression softened like a flower blossoming, his small smile gentle. "Who is it?" Minli asked. The story of Buffalo Boy's friend. Sometimes, during the hot summer days, there is not enough water for my buffalo. So I like to take him out of the city into the surrounding forest to drink in the stream there. One day, I brought him to the forest, and he kept pulling and pushing me away from the stream. No matter what I did, he refused to go in my direction. So finally, I just let him lead the way. And he brought me to a part of the forest I had never seen before. A part I don't think anyone from the city has ever seen before. The trees seemed to reach the clouds, the green grass felt like a silk blanket, and there was a lake of clear water, so pure and clean, It looked as if it were a piece of the sky. But the most beautiful things there were the 7 girls swimming in it. But when the girls saw me and the buffalo come through the trees, they screamed. They jumped out of the water, grabbed their robes, and ran away. They moved so quickly, it seemed like they had all disappeared into the sky. All except for one, that is. One girl stayed in the water and stared at me with scared eyes. Her hair floated around her like a midnight halo, and her white face looked like a star in the sky. "Hello?" I said. You're Buffalo," she said, and her voice was like flute notes in the air. "He's sitting on my clothes." "Oh," I said, and I quickly pushed him over. On the ground, crushed and a little muddy, was a blue silk dress. As I lifted it, the softness made me ashamed of my rough hands. "Here," I said, bringing the dress to the edge of the lake. She looked at me, hesitating. "I won't look," I said, and I placed the dress on the ground and walked a bit away, with my back turned. I heard her slip out of the water and heard the rustle of silk as she put on her clothes. "Thank you," she said. "You can turn around now." And when I turned around, a girl was smiling at me. She was my age, but she was prettier than any girl I had ever seen before. Even paintings of princesses were ugly compared to her. "I didn't mean to scare you," I said. "My buffalo was just thirsty." "I guess so," she said, and she laughed like tinkling bells as we watched my big, lumbering buffalo make his way to the water. "I can't believe my sisters just left me like that. I'm the youngest, too. They're supposed to watch me. But I'm glad they didn't, because now I can talk to you. Tell me about you. Does your buffalo go with you everywhere?" And just like that, we became good friends. She wanted to know everything about me and wasn't snobbish or anything. In fact, a lot of the time she sighed and said she wished she had my freedom. "I have to go before they miss me," she sighed. "I wish I could stay here. Where I live, I'm not allowed to do anything. There's always someone watching, telling me what to do, and it's kind of lonely." "Well, visit me," I told her. "We can have lots of fun together." "I'll try," she promised. And she kept her promise. Like she said, it was hard for her to get away, but every night on the full moon, when she visits her grandfather, she stops here. Sometimes she can only stay for a little while. Sometimes she can stay for hours. Whenever I see her, we laugh enough to last for the month. She's my best friend, and someday, when we're old enough, I'm going to talk her into staying here forever. "And she should be coming tonight," the buffalo boy said, and his smile was bright and broad. "Oh, can I meet her?" Minli said. It was funny how the buffalo boy's whole manner changed when he talked about her. His vaguely mocking attitude and tough expression washed away, and he lit up like a lantern. She was glad the boy had someone in his life other than the buffalo. The boy looked troubled. "She's really shy around other people," he said. "And I think she's afraid if anyone sees her, her family might find out that she stops here instead of going straight to her grandfather's. They're really strict with her." "I won't bother her then," Minli said. "Do you want me to leave?" "No, you can just stay with the buffalo," he said. She told me last time that this visit would have to be fast anyway. She was behind on her work, so they will expect her back quickly. "Work?" Minli asked. "What does she do?" "She weaves and spins thread," the boy said. "That's what she brings to her grandfather when she visits. Thread that she spins. Hey, I know. I'll ask her how you can see the king. She'll know." "How will a weaving girl know about the king?" Minli asked. "Does she live in the inner city?" "No, she lives far away," the boy said vaguely. "But she knows a lot of things." Minli shrugged. It didn't seem likely to her that a friend of the buffalo boy would know how she could see the king, but as she didn't have any ideas of her own, she would hope. Chapter 19. Minli started awake as she heard the scraping of the door against the dirt. The moonlight streamed in from the window, lighting the bare hut. The boy had given her his pile of grass to sleep on, and joined the buffalo, using some of its grass as a pillow. But as the buffalo snored loudly, Minli could see the bowl-shaped hollow in the hay was empty. "I wonder where he went," Minli said, and she found herself thinking of Ma and Ba and Dragon, all waiting for her. Suddenly, the room seemed to ache with loneliness. The boy must be meeting his friend, Minli realized, and unable to control her curiosity, she crept to the window to peek. Yes, the friend was there. Minli was startled when she saw her. Even with the buffalo boy blocking most of her view, Minli could see his friend was beautiful, even more beautiful than he had described her. She seemed to glow like a pearl in the moonlight, and her deep blue silk dress seemed to be the same color as the sky. The bag she held in her graceful hand seemed to be made out of the same silk, but the silver thread embroidered on it made it look as if it were made from a piece of the star-scattered sky. Everything about her seemed finer and more delicate than the average person. There was definitely something unusual about the buffalo boy's friend. Minli watched her laugh and then listened intently as the buffalo boy spoke. He gestured to the house, and Minli ducked down, just out of sight, as the friend glanced toward her. He must be asking her about how I can see the king, Minli thought. As soon as she dared, Minli peeked again out the window. The buffalo boy's friend had her eyes closed toward the sky, as if listening to the wind. Then she looked at the buffalo boy and spoke. He nodded, and the girl smiled at what Minli imagined was the buffalo boy's enthusiastic thanks. Minli sat down on the wooden stool. "She knows a lot of things," the buffalo boy had said about his friend. After seeing her, Minli was ready to believe it. "But who is she?" Minli asked out loud. And just then, the buffalo boy came back inside. "Oh, you're awake," he said when he saw Minli. As much as he tried, he couldn't hide the leftover smiles and laughter from his visit. His eyes sparkled as he sprawled himself out on the bed of grass. "I talked to my friend. She said that the king might be at the Market of Green Abundance tomorrow morning, but you are going to have to find him yourself." "Really?" Minli said. "How does she know?" The boy shrugged. "You didn't ask?" Minli asked. "Don't you think it's mysterious that you only see her once in a while? And you never visit her, she only visits you? And that she knows things like where the king might be tomorrow? Who is she? Really?" "She's my friend," the boy said simply. "That's who she is, and that's enough for me." As Minli looked at the buffalo boy, aglow with happiness against his poor surroundings, she saw it was enough for him. More than enough, as the smile that kept curling up on his face told her. Minli's questions fell from her as she realized there was nothing else to say.